I think 3 years ago when this reading came up again in the cycle about Melchizedek, I spoke about Melchizedek since nobody knows about Melchizedek. I'd like to do that again, but from a different angle this time. First of all, what is all this about Melchizedek? Well, as we saw in the first reading, he's a mysterious figure who comes out of nowhere, as we'll see, and blesses Abraham early on in his career. Melchizedek is called the priest of the Most High God. And this is before Judaism or anything. And so very mysterious. So in the Jewish mystical tradition, based on that text, Melchizedek became a very mysterious and mystical figure. He was often identified with Enoch and Elijah, someone from, well, as someone who was supernatural, who was beyond, our normal human condition. And this is the way it came then down into the letter to the Hebrews, where this notion of Melchizedek is developed by someone who was very aware of the Jewish mystical tradition, the esoteric mystical tradition. And he has this whole theology based on Melchizedek applied to Christ. Because, as he explains, Melchizedek in Hebrew means king of righteousness. And it's mentioned, as you just heard, that he's king of Salem, or king of what would become Jerusalem, which means peace, Salem, Shalom. So Melchizedek is presented as king of righteousness and king of peace, which, of course, Jesus is. This mysterious figure who became incarnate. That's Jesus. The letter to the Hebrews goes on to say he's presented as without genealogy, without father or mother, without beginning of life or end of days, because none of that is recorded. And so mystically that applies to Jesus, who comes from above, without beginning and without end of days. So it's a marvelous use of that mysterious identity, Melchizedek, applied then to Jesus. And the letter to the Hebrews quotes the very line we just used, for our responsorial psalm from Psalm 110, which, in case you don't know, is the psalm that's used as the first psalm for evening prayer all through our tradition for Sundays and holy days. So very prominent. And it says, "You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek." And the author to the Hebrews then applies that to Christ. He was chosen by the Father as a priest forever, as without beginning or end of days, with King of righteousness, King of peace. And you are a priest forever, as Jesus the high priest is. Okay, now, what we did with that text, in our tradition, our Catholic tradition, you are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek, we've applied it to us, ministerial priests. If you ever hear that word, you're a priest forever, which quotes Psalm 110, it's usually applied to us. The ministerial priesthood, we're priests forever, nothing can change that, whatever. Okay. But the point of the text is that it applies to Jesus. But then if it applies to Jesus, well, it applies to all of us. Not just us ministerial priests, but the main priesthood in Christianity is ours, is the baptismal priesthood. And in our baptismal liturgy, as I hope you know, we are all proclaimed priests, prophets, and kings in Jesus Christ. So we're all priests after the order of Melchizedek forever. Now Jesus is the priest and the sacrifice, and here's where the body and blood comes in. He's the priest and the sacrifice, and he offers himself to us, to the world, in his body and blood. But then we do too. We are his body, as St. Paul proclaims, more than once. We are his body, and we offer ourselves not only to Christ and the Father, but to, like them and in them, with them, to the world. We are priests forever and the body of Christ forever, according to the order of Melchizedek, for the nourishment of the world. So never stop at the Eucharist as a sacrament until it becomes you as the body of Christ, as the sacrament of Christ for the world. That's what the Eucharist is for. I repeat, that is what the Eucharist is for. So things like Eucharistic adoration and processions, which we'll have, are beautiful and they have their place. But that's not what it's for. Now, the danger in treating the Eucharist as primarily an object is that we forget that it's us. It's not out there, or even in the tabernacle primarily. It's in the tabernacle to get to us so that we can consume it and become Christ's body. That's why St. Augustine says, receive what you are. That makes us the body of Christ. So that's the danger of having it just as an object to be looked at or processed with or adored in the tabernacle or in the monstrance. It's fine as long as you realize it's not supposed to stop there. It's not what it's for. Jesus did not give us the Eucharist so that he could be, as sometimes said, worshipped and adored in all the tabernacles of the world until the end of time. No, that's not what it's for. It's transitory. That's why it's in the form of bread, under the appearance of bread, because it's supposed to be consumed. It's ephemeral. It's supposed to pass from there into us so that we become the body of Christ. That's why it's under the form of bread rather than a diamond or an emerald to be looked at. Because it's supposed to be consumed so that Christ can consume us. We can be consumed by Christ by consuming his body and becoming his body in the world. We are priests forever after the order of Melchizedek, all of us, so that we can be the sacrament of Christ in the world. And as he offers himself in nourishment to us, we then go out and offer ourselves in nourishment for everyone else. That's what it's for. And until we get that, we're missing the whole point. So let me have a little play on words with the gospel here. I was struck in reading the gospel in the original Greek today. The related words for, it says the translation, the day was drawing to a close, evening was coming. The actual word there is the day was declining. And how often do we feel that way in our lives? Things are declining. Maybe our personal lives, our national lives, our social lives. So we need to bring that consolation, that nourishment, receive it first of all, and then offer it to others as things are declining. And we're called to do that. Jesus says in the gospel, you give them something to eat. You. Because you're my body. And so it says, have them recline, the exact same root word, decline, recline, have them recline, have them rest, have them sit back and relax, take new hope, take new nourishment, receive the gift, and then be able to give it to others as you bring them consolation. Recline at table, have renewed hope, have renewed nourishment. So then, and then I'm adding this on my own, we can incline our whole being and our whole hearts to nourish the world. Whatever fragments of our life are brought together, it's more than enough. They fill 12 worker baskets so that we can offer it to the world. The only reason the Eucharist is there is so that we can become the body of Christ and offer the nourishment of Christ. Our own body, heart, and soul. to the world in and with and as Christ's body. So please, let's get this right. Let's get the perspective correct. God's own perspective here. So when somebody asks you, where is the body of Christ? Someone on the street asks you, where's the body of Christ? Don't say in the tabernacle. That's not wrong, but that's not the point. When they ask you, where's the body of Christ, say, right here.